Recording in progress.
All right, the time is now 7 o'clock. Welcome to our January 6th, 2025 City Council meeting. For all those that are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Welcome back, Amanda. Welcome back, Amanda. Can you do roll call for us, please?
Councilmember Rounds,
Here.
Councilmember Burke,
Here.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Here.
Councilmember Hall,
Here.
Councilmember Frymark,
Here.
Councilmember Houston,
Here.
Councilmember Friend.
Here.
All right. Citizen communications for items not on the agenda. I didn't see anything out there. So anyone in the room have anything, or anyone online that would like to say anything about items not on the agenda? I don't see anybody chiming in online, and I don't see anyone here. Okay. We'll go into agenda approval.
Motion to approve agenda?
Second. Your Honor, I move to amend the agenda to add an executive session under RCW 42.30.110(1I). It's a legal risk for current or proposed actions is the subject.
So that says discussion with legal counsel about legal risk of current or proposed action, RCW 42.30.110, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
So we had a first and a second already.
correct. So I need to take a vote on the first and the second to approve the agenda as is,
Right.
okay?
Oh, as is?
Correct, yes, I had a
Oh,
first and
yeah.
then I had a second as is.
We can't amend it now. We have to wait until we reject this.
Well, if we don't receive 4 votes here to approve, if we receive 4 votes here to approve it as is, we move on with the agenda as is.
Okay.
If we don't receive 4 votes, we'll come back and then we will be able to amend it.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so I have a first with Ms. Dowdy. I have a second with Mr. Friend. With that, do you want to take roll call?
Councilmember Rounds,
No.
Councilmember Burke, Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
No.
Councilmember Frymark,
No.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Friend.
Aye.
With that, there are 4 votes to move the agenda as forward. Okay, reports of city council.
I attended the COG meeting last month, and they're in the process of moving their meetings to the Port Building, which is over, I think, by Weyerhaeuser. I haven't been up there to the new building yet, but they talked about finishing work on their offices and that, so there wasn't a whole lot on the agenda for that meeting, so.
Okay. Welcome to 2025 then, JJ. Any other comments, reports from city council? You're on right there. It's all good, JJ.
All right.
Okay.
I'll shut up for the night.
Okay, with that, reports of standing committees. Gabe, I think, who has, Public Works, sorry.
So Public Works Committee met this evening. In attendance were Councilmember Houston, Councilmember Frymark, myself, and Riley. We met at 6 o'clock. Meeting ended right around 6:30. Some of the highlights were there were no water quality complaints in the month of December. The new Badger water meters have been installed. We're getting good feedback from the community that has received them. There are 37 that have been installed so far, and we're expecting 250 by October of '25. So exciting. The wastewater crew is currently working to complete annual maintenance projects within the facility. Our street crew is currently working on filling potholes and removing Christmas lighting throughout the city. And just a note, if you happen to have issues with potholes that you're noticing driving over, to please report those to Public Works, so that way Riley and his team can take care of those for you. They are obviously aware of some roads needing major maintenance, but you know, if there's one-off potholes that they can fix, they're ready to do that if it's reported. Currently also working to get the old library up to ADA standards. We've talked about in the past, it has to be brought up to ADA standards for it to be usable. They're working on the restroom, redoing the interior paint and flooring. It will be completed, or it's planned to be completed before the community center goes under construction. So that way the old library can take the place of the community center while that's under construction. Also received approval for the annual Title VI report with some advisory items for next year, which if you're not familiar, that really means that we're up to speed on the languages that we need to translate things to be inclusive of all the communities that represent Woodland, and everything's being translated appropriately. And last, the public restrooms at the Hoffman Plaza have been adjusted hours from 7 a.m. till 6 p.m., and that's due to increased vandalism. Already seen an improvement with the vandalism since reducing those hours. So, like, that was a good move for us. And that's it.
Just something I would touch on, just for clarity, when we talk about the repairs and maintenance at the old community center, that is part of that $100,000 project of redoing the joists underneath there and leveling that building out. So just wanted people to understand what that was. So really want to make sure that there is a community center that's always available for the community to rent and use. So that's the reason we're doing the bathroom at the library first, and then we'll switch it over and do the other. So any comments or questions from anyone online or in the audience tonight are related to the Public Works report? Riley is here, and also Jason is there. Questions, comments, anyone? Come on up.
Jennifer Rakeen with the Port of Woodland. Just wanted to give a shout out to Riley and his crew for their quick response to a situation on Sherman Way. We had a incident with some high water at the Sherman Spur and Sherman Way with high water, and it was affecting cars and the safety on the road. They were able to assist us in finding the drainage pipe, get that dug out, and get that drainage underway and get that water out of there and be safe for traveling cars. So just appreciate the partnership and the response from the crew.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Nice job, Riley. Pass that on to the Public Works individuals, please.
I was wondering when
Dawn.
the ADA standards.
Come on up.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I was just wondering when you expect the library to be done and the construction to start on the community center.
I'd have to defer to Riley on timeline.
Yeah, so we currently have plans to redo the ADA restroom at the old library. Those are still in the works. Once those are approved, we'll move forward with the flooring and the paint and the restroom.
Oh, so we don't have a date yet.
I'm looking towards middle of February, early March for that to be completed.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the Public Works report? Okay, moving into reports of city officers, the mayor's report. So first thing, just because Ms. Rakeen was up here, I did have a conversation with her this last week, and I asked her if she could come up to city council next meeting. So what is that? I believe the 20th, 21st, and she's going to give a report out of where they're at so far on Hunter Davidson. I know that we have council members that are part of that, but I thought it would be good if the port and somebody could give us a report out on that piece. Also coming, I will have Kittleson will be coming to discuss Exit 21. Riley was interviewed in the, I was going to say the Oregonian, the Daily News or the Reflector, I believe. It was a Reflector, and talked about the two proposals, the roundabout and the signal. No shocker here for individuals in the room that the roundabout is scoring higher. It doesn't mean that that's the route we have to go, but obviously that scoring higher gives us a better opportunity for funding and assistance from WashDOT. But we're not at that point yet, but again, quarterly, I like to have Kittleson come and give a report out. So that was in the paper. Other thing, I see Keith sitting here, and I know the chamber will talk next time, but a reminder, the chamber dinner is the 24th. Tickets are on sale now for $55. Any other things you want me to throw out there for you, Keith, on the chamber?
No, we have luncheon tomorrow.
And luncheon tomorrow?
Time of the year.
Okay. Excellent. Other items in the mayor's report are on here, and I believe this is what Councilmember Hall was probably getting at, is the audit report here. So a few things I want to show out here is the audit report is something that's required by code, by the state of Washington to do. This isn't something where Todd Deinhardt said, oh, we're gonna go out and, you know, have everything audited. This is an annual audit. When we started, I did a year ago in January, there was an audit report that I gave the results of that. Again, so one, this is required. Two, transparency. This is what I ran on, and this is who I am, is about putting the documents and putting information out there. This is a public records. Before we even put it on this agenda, we had public records requests wanting to know about this audit. It was an audit that just shows up on Washington State's website. Boom, and there's notification that gets sent out to people. Woo, there's a new audit here. New information on the city of Woodland that goes out. So that is where there was that. Now coming into the other items that are part of this, again, coming out of that audit, council members met with the audit team. I met with the audit team, and it was important that we followed and gave a response, and we did the recommendations. Coming out of there was some credit card charges. One, I had Emily, our city attorney, write that letter. This is not Todd Deinhardt. It's like, Emily, I need you to go take care of this. She worked with Amanda, she worked with staff, and away we went. It's out there because, again, this is what all of our responses and our actions are that are taken. The next item that's out there is credit card use procedures and guidelines. They've thought that we've been wonky, and if you look at our previous audit reports, they've kind of given recommendations. They saw that we had new staff, new individuals. They had long, extensive conversations with us. Our audit was actually more expensive and longer than normal because of the things that they were seeing and that they had got into the audit. So, following that, Amanda, working with the other individuals in the city, they created, and working with our accountants, created a new credit card use guidelines, an agreement, lost receipt documentation, and refreshments and meals and policy. Emily, our attorney, reviewed those, was okay with them. We asked whether we needed to get a council approval on those. That's not something that we're required. Our code allows the mayor to implement these new policies and procedures. We showed those to the auditors, and the auditor says, yes, that is what we're looking for. So Amanda has already sent out these guidelines, these policies, these notifications to our city employees with anyone who has a credit card, and says, these are what are can and cannot be charged. I want it to be clear here, this is not a witch hunt, this is not a Todd Deinhardt thing, this is an audit that's required, and I want people to know what we as a city and our employees are doing to correct the issues that are out there. I will throw out there as well, Will Finn sent in a note today. At some point, I wasn't copied on it, I just saw an email that floated around of a response to that will be attached to the meeting minutes of this here. And again, people will be able to see that because it will be part of the meeting minutes for the next, from this meeting. So at the next meeting minutes on the 21st. Any questions, comments from anyone online, in the audience, or council? I'm happy to talk about our audit.
One question, Mr. Mayor.
Uh-huh.
You plan on reading the demand letter to Will Finn?
Am I going to read it?
Yes.
I'm not going to read it here in this here.
Okay, so it's just there for reference.
It's,
And you
again,
plan on doing his response
Right.
as a reference
Right.
document?
And I'm going to say this again, Councilmember Freimark. This is not a witch hunt. This is not something that I'm like, ooh, I'm excited about doing. This here, and that's why I've taken myself out of this. Emily and I would allow you to chime in all you want. And Emily said, Todd, do you want this coming from you, myself? And I said, I want out of this. This is not a Todd Deinhardt deal. So her office, everything has been taken through that means there. So, okay?
That was wise on that. Your part, yes.
Yep.
I agree 100% that there needs to be better procedures put in for the credit card, because it was too loosey-goosey.
100%.
And I've never worked at any place that I didn't have to fill out a detailed report and have someone else look at it. We did need some new guidelines, I agree.
Yeah, and I would just so people know, one of the things that's done here, I think you all know, I don't carry a city credit card. I don't charge anything there. That doesn't change anything, but staff, and I'm looking at these 4 individuals over there, I review and approve every one of their expense reports. Don't put something before me that isn't gonna be there, and I don't wanna see an expense report not approved from them lower on. It needs to go through our chain of command, and it's very much, these are our guidelines and this is what is there. Mr. Burke, I know you talked about the chamber of whether the city was going to buy tickets for the $55. We can have that discussion all day long. The audit talks about what is, you know, stewards of the money, what we can and can't, and how does that increase value and present money for our citizens. I'm telling you right now, the other chamber events, I've written checks out of my own pocket, and I've invited council members to here. The city golf, this events there, I totally support those things. I think the chamber is a wonderful thing. But again, as long as I'm mayor, the city is not paying for those. Mr. and Mrs. Todd and Karina Deinhardt have written checks in the past, and I will continue to show that support, but I will not spend it out of the city. Okay? Okay. Any other questions or comments? I thought I saw.
I have a question. Go ahead, Donna.
I'm just curious, how many city employees have credit cards?
I want to say we previously had somewhere around 11, and I believe we've cut it back down to 6 or 7. I could be wrong on that number, but we have dwindled it down and taken some away. Again, not because we're upset with the employees, but let's focus on what we're spending on these credit cards.
I appreciate that. And I go school board meetings, and every month they're asking, this month it's $315,000 for purchase card purchases. That's a lot of money for 1 month. And looking over their vouchers, I'm seeing Bed Bath & Beyond, Starbucks gift cards. I'm like, I wish Asha was here. If she's not, I hope she's watching, because these are wonderful policies, and it'd be nice to see the school board and superintendent kind of take a look at some of these things. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I can't take credit for these policies.
Well,
I
you brought them forth, so thank you. Yeah.
so. One second, I think Mr. Hall had.
Go ahead. No, let's have the public.
Come on up, Don.
In the audit that I read, it looked like the city had already identified and received quite a bit of the funds back from the questionable charges. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Mr. Hall.
Yeah, my first question is, when and how did you contact Will Finn to let him know about the audit finding, and what assistance did you request from him in clarifying the transactions, and what did he offer to illuminate and clarify each item in question?
I did not contact him. In the past, I have called him. I have reached out to him with no response. At this here, I took myself 100% out of the situation here. The letter was mailed from Emily's office, and Emily, you are welcome to chime in at any point and relay our conversations that we had. Again, I was very clear with Emily. Emily, this is not Todd Deinhardt. This is city. I need you as the attorney to take care of this situation. Again, there's various different routes things could happen. Emily, do you want to chime in?
Sure. So I'll just make a note. We did mail the letter last week regarding a request for that reimbursement. The city is obligated anytime that we find that there's been a misuse or misappropriation or misdirection of public funds to recover that, even small amounts. And this goes the same for if you've ever found underbillings and utility charges. There's processes that we have to go through to try and recover them. And so that's just what we did here. We reviewed the audit report from the state to determine that, that's what they found, that there were charges that shouldn't have been made, and just requested that that be reimbursed as the other charges that I believe someone identified were already reimbursed to the city.
What documentation did you provide to Will Finn to support your demand for reimbursement?
So I'm gonna just ask you, are you defending Will Finn spending these costs?
What I am concerned about is I think we are setting ourselves up for a legal action. That's why I asked for an executive session.
Emily, what legally are we challenging ourselves here with? Here's, fire away, Emily.
Well, based on the audit report, so this is the state recommendation from the auditor's office and that finding that this happened. At this point, all we've done is reference the audit report and the documentation supporting that and the request that this should be reimbursed to the city for the former mayor to pay back. There's been no other communication, no other actions, no other, investigation. So at this point, it's just been a request based on the audit report. If in the future, if either he refuses or there's other things that come up that we need to discuss at that point, then it would be more appropriate to have this discussion in an executive session on the legal risks. Right now, we've just said that the audit report found that this money should be returned to the city and asked that this money be returned to the city.
And this letter to him is public record, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There's nothing on there that is private that would be redacted or, not submitted in a public records request.
That the letter that I sent from my office is public. The audit report is public with all of the documentation. There's nothing there that would require any sort of redaction.
Okay. Continue on, Terry.
So what you're saying, Emily and Will, what you're saying is that you did not provide Mr. Finn with any documentation to support the demand. You simply relied on the audit report, which is actually conjecture on the part of the auditor. It has not been proven that it wasn't approved and authorized use of the card. Am I right? You relied solely on the audit report.
Correct. When the state auditor's office finds that there has been that funds may need to be recovered, then it goes on to the city to ask that. And at this point, all we've done is ask. And I did see that there was a response. I will review that response, and then that may be something that I need to discuss further with the city council to determine what next steps, if any, that the city needs to take to fulfill your obligations of protecting public funds that you are the stewards of.
When we make a conjecture, like the auditor did, that there was misappropriation of funds, we need to find out what that transaction was and if that is indeed true.
So we do have the transactions, first of all. So outside of the demand letter, the audit report is public, Terry. It doesn't make a difference. That audit report would be out there. Individuals, the community will see that the prior mayor had $580 outside. So that's one item. And one of the action items that came out of it was you need to recover those costs. Emily, we need you to recover those costs for us. That is something, you know what? And the auditors told us because of the additional audit hours, we should be going after those additional audit hours to recover those from the prior mayor. Yes, Todd Deinhardt did make the decision. I'm not here on a witch hunt. Let's just recover the costs that were spent. So I wholeheartedly made the decision on my own and said, you know what, I'm not going to go after those hours and ask the state auditors to say, hey, could you tell me how many extra hours were spent on this as a result of these charges? Ms. Hogan.
So the auditors, when they came in, they said they were doing an accountability audit, and one part of the accountability audit is they sample different charges, and one of the ones they decided to sample based on several anonymous comments they have received, and they wouldn't even give me that information of who these comments were from, were to specifically look at credit card usage. And so they sampled 3 different months. I can't remember the exact months, but then within those 3 months they decided they wanted to look for the entire year. So me and my staff pulled the entire year's worth of credit card statements and one by one went through every single receipt. And they told me, this is okay, this is okay, this is not okay, this is okay, this is okay, this is not okay. And then the ones that were not okay, we had to identify, did those funds get recovered? Majority of them did get recovered. We were able to find where receipts of those transactions did get recovered. The ones that are still outstanding were identified by the state auditor and letting us know that these have not been recovered and they need to be recovered. So that's where it all started.
So we do have the receipts that show
Yeah,
the $500.
they're all itemized, everything. And it doesn't fall within state guidelines to be able to spend items for those.
Isn't it true that Gina kept a record of all credit card transactions and documented where the money was spent and what it was for and what was reimbursed? Didn't she have a spreadsheet of some kind? I don't believe you. I think she had something.
Are you serious, Mr. Hall? Mr. Hall, I appreciate your defense of Will Finn, but you know what? As elected officials, we are here to protect the funds of our city, okay? It's $580. If he doesn't think they're legitimate, let him defend that. That is not our jobs as elected officials up here, sir. And for you to say that to Ms. Hogan, you owe her an apology,
I
please.
apologize for saying I don't believe you, but I am concerned that we don't have a record of those things that Gina kept a record of.
Again, that is why we do have increased policies and procedures that are here. She has the copies of the credit card receipts. So we have those $580 that are out there. We have the actual receipts. We know which vendors they went to. We have those. What more do we need, sir?
We need to know what they were for and were they approved by this council, and I believe they were.
Okay, because, hold on a second. And Emily, I would ask for you to chime in. But if I go spend $10,000 at the grocery store and you all approve my credit card, even though those are for my own personal funds, and you approve it, that doesn't make it right. That does not mean that I have the ability to go spend the taxpayers' dollars because you approve that. You would have to come after me and say, Mr. Deinhardt, you owe us that $10,000. Emily, go ahead. I can see you trying to chime in.
Yeah, I was going to say, regardless of whether or not the council, because obviously the council approves vouchers for payments of things. So at some point that it's likely that there were some sort of approval process. If it is not done consistent with state law, then it is still a misappropriation of funds. Now that can be done because of ill intent, and we're not saying that that's what happened here. It can be done because of lax policies and things that haven't been reviewed consistent with state law. It could be things that were once permissible that the state auditors have determined are not permissible anymore for certain expenditures. I've had that happen with cities before where they're like, well, we used to say that you could have this amount, per diem for meals, but really that's too high now. So it's going to be this lower amount and you need to seek reimbursement for this other amount. Unfortunately, a lot of that is within the control of the state. So if the auditors have identified funds that should not have been spent, regardless of the reasoning or regardless of the approval process by the city, if those are funds that they say should be public and need to come back to the public coffers, then the city has to make reasonable efforts to recover those funds.
Mr. Mayor.
Hold on a second, Ms. Dowdy.
And this is not meant to throw Gina under the bus, but for a long time, we are getting much better at it, but for a long time, a lot of our accounts that were being paid and approved by council were very vague. And when we would ask questions, we did not have answers to give accountability for exactly what we were getting approval for. And so we did not have itemized, this is exactly what your money is going towards. That now we're getting better with itemizing it a little better for our approval, but for a long time, in the last 3 years, it has not been that itemized. So when all of a sudden we have these charges, if it's minor, we're like, okay, but it might be a very vague category. So I would say, especially if it's accumulating to 580, if it was $100 here or something, it could have easily been something that was overlooked as if it was a business expense or a.
Yeah, so, again, not throwing Gina under the bus, this is not to throw people under the
Right,
bus. This
it
is, I
just-
mean, I'm not going to, but I'm almost like, here, I'll write the check for the $580 myself, we can move on. I cannot believe we are sitting here having this debate over something that by law we are required to do.
Right.
If you read page 6, it talks about the deputy clerk treasurer who's responsible for reviewing credit card charges and ensuring they were supported and allowable. I mean, so that was also an audit finding as well that we were working on here. So to your point, Ms. Dowdy, fully right there. Mr. Freimark.
Okay, let me start out. I'm not a lawyer, but I got a lot of legal background. And I wouldn't want to be the city or the state auditor system, or us council people for that matter. In my personal opinion, they've exceeded their common sense and ethical status quo, you might say, I don't know, in using words like misuse. Emily, you said, what was it, ill something? It's not that the audit was particularly bad. It's the way you went around presenting it to Will Finn. Somebody should have called him up, knocked on his door, talked to him before we allowed this publication in a town council meeting. We should have asked him. Now, we need to read it. I read his response, and he addresses most of the questions on that pretty satisfactorily, in my opinion. Now, I don't think Terry actually meant to call Amanda a liar. What I think he meant is there was a report someplace that she couldn't find, and he was having a hard time believing we couldn't find it, that's all. Because I was told the same thing, that I think, I don't know what happened to it, but I thought there was an Excel spreadsheet for it. That was my impression on it in the few times I talked to Gina myself.
So I will challenge you here. You were in that meeting with the auditors?
And I
Did
was.
you reach out to Will Finn on this?
No, I didn't,
Okay.
but they said they were going to.
The
The
state
audit-
auditors said they
audit,
were going
yeah.
to?
No.
They said they were or they either had or were going to. Remember me bringing up the point, I was there, Carol was there.
The state
Terry was
auditor was going to reach out? That's not the
No,
state
not the
auditor.
state, the auditor, whose report now has gone to the state.
The auditor would not reach out.
The auditor was requiring the city to do the reaching out. And we were supposed to
Okay, I
report back to the
misunderstood
auditors
Yeah, and
what
if you
our
read
process
the audit
was.
report, it talks about that we're required to, and if we don't want to, there's an attorney general. I mean, it lays out here what we're required to do here. So again, we reached out to an attorney and said, here's a letter. I mean, we sent the person a letter. I mean, when we have a water bill that's past due, do we call them and say, ooh, where's this here? We send them a letter and say, hey, you owe this. A letter is a form of bill collection.
You missed the point, Mr. Mayor. It's only $580, correct? All right. I don't care if it's $5 million.
Do you want to write a check for the $580?
No.
We have a lot of taxpayers
What I'm,
sitting here
what
and it's
I'm
their money.
saying is, we just opened the door to a heck of a legal suit for nothing else, slander and misrepresentation.
How is there slander? A
Possibly.
state auditor.
Because they use the words like misuse.
That's true.
And that's
That's-
calling him either a thief
Help,
or
Maggie.
did something illegal. And I don't doubt that he might have made mistakes. I don't doubt that he owes us some money on it. But what I don't like is the tone of the letter to him that accuses him of illegal activities, of intentionally doing something wrong. That's where the mistake was made in my judgment.
Okay.
And I think we need to correct that. And I would just ask you to, everybody to read his response first before you have any more opinions of it, one way or the other. And then you can make a more intelligent decision.
Ms. Rounds.
I was just gonna say, it's been a lot more than 3 years that the credit card has not been watched closely. It's a heck of a lot more than 3 years.
so
Yeah,
I'm just
I know,
saying that
but it's,
in the 3 years
that's
I've been
never
here-
has been.
Yes,
So.
I agree with you,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying that it's
Right.
it's not been very detailed on our things that we've been passing.
Right.
Mr. Frank.
Just for clarity, Mr. Freimark had suggested that we should have reached out before publishing this. Was it not published by the state auditors upon its conclusion? It's
That audit,
published.
that audit
audit.
was instantly correct.
Yeah.
When it sent it to us, it was published, it was a notification went out. There were citizens who had that already. So, again,
But this is on our agenda for tonight.
Oh.
That's how I'm saying that we're publishing it tonight.
But
in our
it's
agenda.
because I'm required to have the audit report. So
I'm
I
just
put the
saying-
audit report out here, and as transparent, whether you as council members agree or not, the citizens of our community appreciate it, and I will show what we as a city are doing to improve and to, move along.
It's public record as well, so the community, citizens, everyone would not only deserve to know, by law, they would have to know. And so I don't know how we would withhold that information until he could be notified.
We
it's a
should have talked to him and got an answer from him and a response.
I
And
don't
if
wanna
it's-
crosstalk, sorry. I'm just saying
Go
that
ahead.
we have an obligation to notify the citizens. That audit was published upon completion by the state auditor's office. They told us that in the conclusion meeting, that as of now, this will be published to our website. We're just essentially linking the document to our agenda tonight. We're not publishing anything, it was already in place.
Yeah, I think that
Correct.
is
It's all been
publishing in our
published out
town
there.
council meeting. And what I'm against is some of the wording that is accusatory in nature, not the results of the audit particularly. I just think we have to be careful as a city, and especially as town council, to make sure that I do the same thing for Todd. If you were in Will's place, I'd support better communication between us and you as far as what your expenditures were being the past. That's what really bothers me.
About my expenses in the past?
No, if you were in his place and they said you did some misuse of
Okay,
funds.
I'm gonna go.
I wouldn't want to say outright that you misused funds or did anything illegal without talking to you personally first.
Hold on a second, Gabe, stop.
Giving you a benefit of the doubt, in other words.
So, Mr. Freimark, I am going to point to page 6 where it talks about non-allowable use of public funds. The audit report. Emily, you're more than welcome to chime in. Again, this is your language, your document as far as the letter to Will. I didn't have any say in it, but we're using language out of an audit report that was published by the state. Go ahead, Emily.
Yes, I was just going to say the word misuse is just to indicate that it's not consistent with state law. And as I explained before, that could be for a variety of reasons, none of which we've identified a particular reason, just that it was not consistent with state law. It was a misuse of public funds and to recover it. And again, that could have been an inadvertent mistake. It could have been because the state changes their mind on, what is an allowable expense for a public official and what's not. But it was a misuse of public funds under state law. And so that's what we were asking for recovery of based on the audit report.
And I would have to disagree with an absolute statement that it was total misuse. I think there's a great deal of opinionization and lack of supporting evidence, and that's a conclusion that I'd be careful from a legal standpoint to make across the board. I was there when they were going through those, and that's my personal opinion. I think we ought to be cautious, and I think everybody should read Will Finn's response first, and then modify your opinion, good, bad, or otherwise. And we should have talked to him in person, I'm saying, that's all.
Mr. Frank.
Just for clarity, and maybe you could refresh my memory, I believe it's an itemization, correct, of the items that were purchased, and the specific items were not allowable per state guidelines.
Correct. 100% correct.
And why were those not provided to Will Finn? those documents. What I'm hearing is that you sent a demand letter based on the conjecture of an auditor who said it is recommended, not it's required, it is recommended. You never brought this to council. You did not include us. You kept us out of the loop.
Hold on a second, hold on a second. I will give you the receipts so you can drop them by his house tonight, Mr. Hall. But we had 3 council members who were there during the audit closeout. The email went out inviting people to that closeout. I called in out of town to that meeting. 2 individuals showed up in person, another one called in there. So for you to sit there and accuse me, there were council members in there. That finding, this information was discussed in there at length. So I take, pause here with your commentary there, Mr. Hall.
Well, you're talking about the audit review with the auditor. I was
Correct,
there.
and we went through the charges. We went through this language. The audit draft, which was exactly like this, there was no change from the draft to the final, was what was presented. I did not see it in advance. I sat there in a meeting with other council members and Amanda and the state auditors and went through it for the first time with them.
I was there. I heard it. I
Okay.
saw it. That's not the point. The point is that after that audit review, there is a certain length of time that the Attorney's General Office allows us to respond to that audit. And during that time, not once was this council convened to discuss how we would approach and where we would go.
Hold on a second. I
Because
sent an email out, Mr. Hall,
you did in the middle of a holiday weekend when we were all gone out of town.
and I'm sorry. It came out. The audit report came out, and it was 2 days later that I sent it. So I should have sat there and said, well, nobody's from city council is going to read their email. Is that how our city council works? I apologize. I didn't realize that everyone stays off of their email and our city council doesn't do as their elected officials. Okay? My bad for making sure you didn't know it. I sent that email out and laid a copy of this. I laid out what our actions was and what was going to happen. It was there for all 7 of you. I did not do something on my own. I will not be talked to in that way, that I just went rogue here, because that's not what happened. I have taken myself completely out of this situation because I knew individuals like you were going to accuse me. And this is not who I am and not what I'm about. So maybe you should just check yourself at the seat.
Can I say something?
I'm frustrated.
Can I?
Yep.
A lot of it is just common sense. Like, if you have a company or city credit card, do you think it'd be okay to purchase alcohol? I mean, I wouldn't think it would be okay to do. So it's just common sense. You don't have to be told everything what you can and can't do. It's just like, that's a simple.
How much did we spend to send that letter? How much attorney fee was required to
Well,
collect?
we spent more on this conversation than we spent on that letter, but again,
That's
it's
my point.
it's required by law. We were required, as part of that audit letter, to go after and recover those funds. So again, I should have sent, yes, I tell you what, Terry, I will write the city, Emily, you tell me what it costs to write that letter, the $250, $260, and Todd and Karina Deinhardt will write a check to the city of Woodland for that $260 that it cost there. Because I explicitly was taking myself out of this situation so that this conversation wasn't be directed at me. But instead, you're having a difficult point of drawing that this is after Todd Deinhardt. When you know what? Why don't you take a step out of it and not look at Will Finn as your son? Take it as a third-party citizen, which I did in this whole situation. So Emily, please provide me a bill for what this costs, and I will reimburse
You will
the
not.
city.
You will not reimburse the city for this.
Yeah, that's
It is your job to take care of what the audit says, and that is what you're doing.
Yeah, that's not what Terry's saying. We're getting off the main point.
Okay,
That's
can we
not-
move on?
Hold on a
Please.
second, Ms. Rounds.
I was just going to say that a lot of people, Gabe or Mr. Houston, sometimes they do use a credit card if they're out, and they do buy booze, but they reimburse the city. They write a check to reimburse the city if they use it. So.
No.
Any other comments from council on this? Upcoming events, the planning commission is on 1/16/2025, and the city council meeting is 1/21/2025. Consent items.
Motion to approve consent items.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Hogan.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Friend.
Aye.
Moving into action items B, approve vouchers December 2nd half 2024.
Motion to approve vouchers.
Second.
Comments, concerns, questions? Ms. Hogan?
Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke.
Aye.
Moving into action item C, authorize the mayor to sign contract renewal with Natural Selection Farms Incorporated for the hauling of and beneficial use of biosolids.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or comments from the audience or online regarding action item C or from council? This here is an extension of the current contract. Again, we don't have other companies that are out there, so it is kind of difficult when you have a sole source.
I'm just gonna throw out what we kind of discussed a bit in our Public Works meeting, that there really isn't a good alternative to it, that Riley has explored other ways that you might mitigate it, but this is our option, so.
We've changed the procedures, we've done that before.
I think, if I understand,
They
Gonna
took
be
away
hard.
their,
yeah, they took away that
Permits.
permit to be able to
Right.
to dispose of it in the old way.
Yeah.
Ms. Hogan?
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark, Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
aye.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy.
Aye.
Moving into action item D, authorize the mayor to sign agreement with Clerical Union and Public Works Union for 2025 and 2025 through 2027 contract.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or comments from the audience online or city council?
I'm super excited that we're getting one contract for all of them together. And I'm excited that they all agreed
Agreed.
to do
I think
this.
that's
so.
a great win for us.
Yeah, I would like to throw out, Riley worked diligently on this here, so thank you to Riley on that piece there. Again, there were 3 or 4 individuals that bargained against. They were very professional. It was great to have conversation and dialogue with them as well. But yes, I think this sets the city going into 2025 and through 2027. The one thing I will throw out there in discussion with this when we take a vote, so the union members will be paying 6% of their medical. It's a 94-6 split. Currently, management has a 95-5 split. I have had a conversation with each of them, and they know that they are going to be paying in 2025 for a 94-6 split as well. What's good for the union is good for management here. Their contracts call for them to have a 95-5. So next council meeting, you will see their contracts coming forward where we change that. But at the same time, I'm getting their contracts cleaned up where it says 30-day severance, where it's like, well, why would we pay you 30-day severance when there's not 30 days? It would be 4 working days, so it would be 20 days. So it's some of that language, but I want council to be aware that management is also going to a 94-6 split.
Okay.
And they're all nodding their head because I've been very clear with them. Okay, with that, Ms. Hogan?
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke.
Aye.
Moving into action item E, resolution number 798, amend resolution 784 to add Transportation Improvement Board funded Pacific Avenue Sidewalk Project to 2025 through 2030 Transportation Improvement Plan. So we have a Transportation Improvement Plan, TIP, that is for 2025 through 2030. We have received TIP dollars for the Pacific Avenue Sidewalk Project. For us to receive those dollars, we're required to have it as part of our TIP plan. So this amends our TIP plan so that we now can receive those transportation improvement dollars is the point of this here. Okay? Questions, comments from council? Any?
Make a motion to approve resolution number 798.
Second.
Any other questions, comments?
So are we having to add a board
No. Transportation Improvement Board is where the funding is coming from.
Oh, okay.
And they've already given us a grant. We've
Got it.
accepted that grant, but as part of that, we have to make sure it's part of our transportation improvement plan. So what we're doing is, with Resolution 798, is updating transportation improvement plan so that it includes that Pacific Avenue project.
Got it.
Okay? So when the board comes, we have it. Ms. Hogan?
Councilmember Friend.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Burke.
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy.
Aye.
Councilmember Hall.
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark. Councilmember Houston.
Aye.
With that, the ayes have it.
Motion to end meeting.
Second.
The time is now 7:50. Have a great night, everyone.